And now we can take care of the final part of this lining effect, so the final component here, which will be the lining that sort of lingers on the pieces after the explosion happens. So I will name this LTG static, and let's create a branch over here. For this I will want to preview my pieces, and I want to create a circle that kinda encompasses the whole simulated area. So let's just drop down a circle, and I will set this to ZX orientation, and from the circle I will drop down a transform, and I want to bring this up in the translate, and I want to make sure that this is above my plane, so the ground. Let's go back to the circle and increase this until we roughly cover the area that we are interested in. So this will be where the points spawn that will generate the lining. And let's say that a value of 15 is fine, and maybe also increase the divisions, although this doesn't matter that much. And from here we can simply plug this into a PubNet, and we can start generating some points. Let's go inside and let's disable guide, and for the birth let's maybe drop this to 50, and I will set the life expectancy to 0.4 and variance of 0.2. And I will also want to animate this birth rate the same way that we did with the branching part of our previous lining effect. So we need to bring this value here to the sub level, and I will just go up, and for my PubNet let's go to parameter interface and open this up, and then go back inside and just drag this constant birth rate value in my root, and I will hit accept, and let's go back up. So now we have this option here that we can animate, and let's preview the animation. Let's maybe set this to a value of 0 for now, and let's just go along the animation, and let's see, maybe after our pieces kind of start to settle, so I think maybe at 60 will be a good enough value or frame. Let's set a keyframe for 0 here, and just move over maybe 10 frames, so over to frame 70. Let's start with maybe a birth rate of 35. So now we start to generate points, and we want to stop generating them maybe at let's maybe try 110, and I will set this back to 0. So if I hide other objects and reset the simulation, let's take a look. Okay, so we are spawning a bunch of points, and maybe I will grab this keyframe, so I can hold down shift while dragging with my left click, and I can now middle mouse button and move this keyframe over. So maybe I want to increase the duration of the points. Reset the simulation, and let's preview again. I think this will be fine. Let's maybe create the rest of the effect, and we will judge later. So from here I can drop down a point jitter node. So this will randomize the positions of the points a little bit. So if from here I drop down a merge, so from my PubNet, and plug these both in and drop down an add, I can now use the ID attribute inside the group and set the by attribute and set this to ID. So now we have some lines. There is a problem here. You can see that the points are getting all jittery, and this is because inside this point jitter we have to specify to use the ID attribute, and now this will fix it. So we just have some lines, and we can maybe make these a little bit bigger overall if I just increase the scale a little bit. So I want to ray these points down to our geometry, so let's go grab the geometry from my transform pieces. So our R&D ground, let's grab this, and let's drop an object merge here, and let's bring it over. And so from here I want to drop down a ray and ray these points, or rather lines, to my geometry. And let's turn off show guide geometry, and I want to project these lines straight down. So in my method, or rather in my direction, let's give this a vector, and let's disable the middle value here and set this to a -1. So now these are going to be straight down projected onto our geometry. Alright. So this is working a little slow, and while I work on the rest of the effect, I will actually just turn this off and create the effect from there. Let's maybe go to this add node, and there's still a few things that we have to change here. So let's maybe first go to the point jitter, and we don't want to jitter these on the Y scale, so I will just set the axis scale here to 0 on the Y. So this will flatten them and maybe even increase the scale a little bit more. And also I want these, the second set of points here, the duplicated points, I also want to give this a slight animation. So what I can do is drop a attribute VOP from here. And so I simply want to animate these points a little bit. So let's step inside and let's plug the P inside the P, and I simply want to add a vector in between here. So I will drop down an add, and I want to generate a random vector from the ID. So drop down a random and generate a vector, and let's plug this into a fit and set the destination mean to -1. And so from here I can actually scale this vector by using the nh value. So I will drop a bind and import my nh, so the normalized age, and let's scale this by the nh. And maybe before, or actually let's just plug this in and let's place this inside our add and see what happens. Okay, so all the points have some slight movement now, which is great. Let's maybe let's make some room here, and I also want to multiply this with a constant and make this flat on the y-axis. So this constant will be a 3 float value with 1, 0 and 1. So now we get rid of the upwards animation. Okay, and also let's promote a fourth parameter here, which I will rename to amp. And let's go back up and set this to 1. And let's preview the animation with the add as well. Okay, so maybe I can set this amp to 2, so now the animation is twice as fast. Let's maybe preview this from the camera. I think this is fine. Maybe these are a little bit too many points, so go back to the PubNet. Let's just shift click this value here and press F to frame the keyframes, and I'll just drop this down maybe to roughly 25. And let's see the result now. So I think this is good. With the ray enabled, these will now fall flat on my surface, as we can see here. Actually, so the points are rayed down, but they are kind of penetrating with the geometry a little bit. So let's fix this in the next step here.